Scott Connor, I heard you on a podcast maybe like a couple weeks ago talking about after the rookie draft, the real NFL draft, that every podcast, real NFL fantasy, is just, we're in rookie heaven. We're talking about all the good things and the upside of these picks that are never going to hit. And it dawned on me, you pointed that out, that there is a need in the market to take a big giant dump on all these rookies, poke the holes in them, and figure out the more likely story, what goes wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those topics where during draft season, so even before the NFL draft, it is just the rosiest colored glasses on every running back. We've joked about this offline. Every running back, people are like, that guy's going to go day 2. He just has to go day 2.
They do.
And the reality is only a couple guys go day 2. And this year, it really didn't happen. We didn't even get the surge of running backs into day 2. They all fell to the 4th round, which we can debate whether there's a difference, but you hear people all the time citing, day 2 capital, day 2 capital. But what happens when they don't? You usually throw it out the window and you go, well, I really like the fit. I really like this landing spot. And so you start talking yourself back into it. And I was just throwing that out there. I'm a very logical person that some would even say, heck, if you watched our draft stream this year, Alan, it was Scott is the negative one because everyone's like, let's just have fun. Let's enjoy every single pick. And I'm the one sitting here going, hey, did you know that 3rd round picks only get second contracts on their team like 38% of the time? And people are, which basically means 62% of them, the team is going to move on from, not care. And it doesn't mean they retire or they don't play. It's just even the analysis has leaked into the fantasy space.
Yeah.
Every player, you just listen to, I know you listen to a ton. You and I probably listen to more content than almost any other content creators out there. How many draft recap shows do you hear people breaking down that 6th round receiver and they talk about his quickness and his route running and maybe he can earn the wide receiver 3 role on a team? And it's like, dude, do you realize there are 6 other receivers on the roster that are looking at that guy that's no competition. That guy's not better than me. Yet every single prospect down to the UDFAs, you hear about their size, their quickness, their whatever it is. It's always the positive. So we're going to talk higher end players. I just think we're so caught up in let's spend 98% of fantasy stuff with the rosiest colored outcomes. And it's just not reality.
And to add on to that, we love talking rookies. We spend, more than half of our time doing content talking about 30 players, only which 6 are going to matter for fantasy football, maybe 9, right? We spend a very disproportionate amount of time talking about these guys. And you were saying on the DD fantasy stream fantasy football stream that you guys did on draft night, they were calling you negative. I had a different word for you, Scott. I was calling you sober that night, right? Like you had a sober approach to this. So, whereas theirs was a little drunken,
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So what we'll do is we'll go over, we'll aim for about the top 15. It might be 12, might be 20. Let's just see what kind of pace we have. We don't want to keep you here all day, even though I love spending time with you, Scott Connor. Ashton Jeanty. He can't miss, Scott. There's no way he can miss, except if what happens. What's the story we could tell ourselves where this you're going to go full Trent Richardson on me here?
No. I don't think you even try to project something like that because that's an outlier. But the other thing that I think is an outlier is just projecting him to be exactly what you expect him to be off the rip, and it's not going to stop throughout his rookie contract. I think if you look at 1st round running backs historically, they are by far the safest bet that you can draft in Dynasty. In terms of, I'm going to get a good player that gets a lot of opportunity, that probably scores a lot of points. But define what a lot is. Because immediately you have to bring in, the price tag. He's RB3 in Dynasty now. And truthfully, I think there's a lot of people out there that if you said, him or Gibbs, if they had to pick, they like Gibbs, but they're also like, dude, Jeanty could be better. If he hits his 80th percentile outcome or better, he's probably got a better shot to have an even higher end season than Gibbs does in his current situation. So you're already RB2, RB3. Some of the trades I've seen for the 101, people moving it straight up for Brian Thomas, CeeDee Lamb. Like you're immediately moving this pick if you want for, he's in the conversation to get you to pretty much any asset. Doesn't mean you can get any asset, but you put the 101 in the deal and it's there. Here's the sobering outcome, or maybe the not so positive.
The 50th percentile outcome.
He's just a good running back.
Right.
He's Kenneth Walker. He's Najee Harris with a little more juice right away, but that's it. Like, he's a perennial top 8 to 12 running back, top 15 running back, but you never look up after his first 3 years and you say he had that top 4 season, top 5 season. And that might mean that he's maybe not as good as we think, gets a lot of touches, or something happens and he doesn't get as many touches, or he gets injured. Like, there's a lot of things where you can go and you go, okay, yeah, remember Kenneth Walker, when he first burst on the scene, after he took over the gig, people thought, he was like RB2 or RB3 at one point. Right. Now, that was in an era where we started to devalue older running backs. We've overcorrected that now, where it's like, if you can still play, no matter how old you are at running back, you're going to be considered viable on the market. But I just think there's a world where he's RB6 to 12, and that's fine. Like, it's nice to draft a guy knowing I'm going to almost get that for sure. But I think just thinking, okay, he's just going to be, he's going to guaranteed he's going to have Bijan's season last year in year 2, and he might even have it in year 1. I think we're shooting a little bit too high there.
I mean, remember how slow Joe Mixon started, and he's a productive, that's a good pick. You got him at pick 4 in your rookie drafts, right? I mean, Mixon was considered almost like a bust for fantasy in the first
Jonathan Taylor didn't have his best season right away. I mean, he started out in a weird usage situation, and then the second half of the year, he was very good, but not elite. But he's only had one elite season. Like, if I told you he would have Jonathan Taylor's career, mixed in there, you have some injuries, a contract dispute, some bad offenses. So you have some variables in there that we can never account for. But if I told you right now, because Jonathan Taylor was in the 2020 class, right? You still feel good about Jonathan Taylor in 2025, right? Over the last 3 years, he is second in the league in opportunities. So even with his injuries, he's a workhorse. You would take that if you had year 6 Ashton Jeanty, what Jonathan Taylor is today. But a lot of people would tell me that Jonathan Taylor, if he cost what Ashton Jeanty did, man, I hope Jeanty gets more than what Taylor has in his first 5 years. So it's almost like that's a very good comparison. But the value in Taylor is he's still around, Alan. He still probably has. If there's a next Derrick Henry, it's probably him.
Oof.
Yet we would say he's been a little disappointing in his first 5 years at the same time.
Yeah, and remember, even Taylor's RB1 season, I remember the narrative around that. It was the worst RB1 season of all time.
Like 20.8 or 21.1 points or something like that. Like, it was not Todd Gurley peak, David Johnson peak, Christian McCaffrey peak. It was 20% lower than those guys.
All right, well, yeah, that is kind of scary. You said Kenneth Walker, right? And also Travis Etienne, right? I mean, that's a really bad outcome. I mean, he was a first-round running back. Najee, first-round running back. Those guys, just because they have the tag of first-round running back, no one liked Najee coming. Everyone thought that was like, that's a little bit of a donkey pick. But Etienne,
I think Etienne would have been good. Here's the thing with Etienne. Remember, he missed the first year with the Liz Frank. If you would have gotten that Etienne year where he would have coming out blazing right away, you know what I mean? You might feel a little differently. Obviously, where he is today, you're going, that was an awful pick. But yeah, I mean, those were first round running backs. When we get to Amari and Hampton, I think let's go right to him.
Yeah, I
think it's the same. The Amari and Hampton is where you have the Etienne and Najee argument, where you're like, okay, he's not going to fade out of the league. You know what I mean? Like, people will cite Rashad Penny and Sony Michel. Like, actually, Sony Michel was pretty good for his rookie contract. It just was short-lived. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the way the Patriots used the backfield was a little frustrating. And then Rashad Penny was good when he wasn't injured.
What makes Sony Michel bad was that he had the ticking time bomb knees, and there was should we draft Nick Chubb in the second round or take Sony there? Like, that was, it's kind of a similar argument with the Ohio State backs now. I didn't mean to interrupt your thought, but Sony and Rashad Penny both were like red flaggy picks, whereas Omari and Hampton, like, I don't know anyone that thought he was not going to be a first round pick.
But we say that was not the consensus in December or even January. The Hampton first round steam didn't really start until we got more into the depths of draft season, to where it was like, okay, this guy's definitely going to go first round, right? And I think that, again, a first round running back is a bet I'm always going to take. just because they're almost guaranteed opportunity. A lot of them are guaranteed opportunity right away. And you don't get drafted in the first round unless you have some sort of trait or skill where the league goes, because the NFL is not stupid. They know how many replaceable running backs there are. They clearly took this guy 2.5 rounds higher than Caleb Johnson, 3+ rounds higher than all the guys that went in the 4th round. So you're looking at this saying, what's the downside for Amari and Hampton? If I told you he had Kenneth Walker's career so far, would you
We're
be
using
happy
Kenneth
with that?
Walker as the benchmark of disappointment.
Breece Hall's career, would you be happy with that?
I mean, Breece Hall has been a major disappointment.
But again, Breece Hall took over in his rookie year, smashed, was RB1 or RB2. I mean, you could have, again, with running backs, like, all you can hope for is they hit the ground running. The benefit with Hampton is he's actually going to get a little bit of a benefit of doubt from dynasty managers if he doesn't do it from day one. Because Najee's job is to take work from somebody else. That's the one skill he has that the team is like,
He's good enough, right, to block.
And people will say, oh, he'll just dust Najee.
No.
I've said it a couple times, and this is where you get into the downside with Hampton. He doesn't fire right away because Najee was signed for a reason. Najee also signed for effectively it was a $5 million deal, right? There's some incentives and whatever, but like, we also know what about Najee. He's from California. He had a relationship with Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh likes this kind of guy, and people have debated me saying Chargers will never do this. What if they really like Najee in that building, Alan, and they go, Najee, we want you to be the second guy to Hampton, right? But we'll give you a 3-year, $24 million extension. You stay here for Hampton's whole career, and that's a steal for the Chargers. Because you know what? 3 for 24 with today's cap, that's like paying $4 or $5 million for a running back a couple years ago. And it's a guy that you can always throw in there if you want something different than Hampton. Like, I could see that happening. How does Hampton return the prices he's going for if that's the case? And I think that is just as realistic as Najee is phased out and he walks in free agency. And just throwing it out there.
Yeah, and I've heard you say that in a podcast, and I'm like, wow, Scott's catching heat for this. I think that's like almost the likely scenario. Najee's the guy that he's the Frank Gore at this part of his career. He sticks around, compiler, good enough to cap the upside for an RB1 season, but not good enough to push the other guy out of the way, right? So, and let's remember, I don't think Najee's ever missed a game. So you can't even bake in that narrative like, when he gets hurt, it'll be Hampton's SZN, right? Like anyone can get hurt at any time, but Najee's
SZN coming across on podcast is hilarious.
I hate that shit. That's why I said it, it gives me the douche chills, So let's just to review that Amari Hampton has like the ultimate C block guy next to him, which could, again, you're taking him at pick 2 in these super flex drafts. You're passing on potentially what could be a top 12 quarterback. You're potentially could be, a high end wide receiver 1. You're passing on maybe the next Jamar Chase, who knows, or someone to enter that tier for a player that could literally be in a timeshare backfield for his career. Who would be, if all the downside happens with Hampton, who's maybe a recent in the last decade example of who he is if that downside reveals itself?
That's a good question. He'd have to probably go back a little bit and try to look at guys that were drafted high. Because, I mean, here's the thing. I'm still drafting him. Like, he's going to be startable even with Najee there. Like, I'm not worried about, I don't need this narrative to come true that he gets every touch. He gets 400 touches in his 3rd season. Like, that doesn't need to happen for you to get a top 12 running back. Probably needs to happen for you to get a top 3 running back. But Hampton doesn't quite cost that, but he does cost, I think to your point, it's the opportunity cost of what else you could do with that pick. Just click and draft at 102 when you could make similar bets or similar arguments on the positive side for the next 3 or 4 players, including another running back or 2. That's when you're like, okay, is Hampton really in his own tier? Because I see him go way higher than all the other running backs, but I think a lot of that is just, he was in the first round and they weren't.
Yeah. I'm here with Scott Connor, DD Fantasy Football. Scott, I forgot to let all the audience know that the RotoWire Dynasty podcast brought to you by Circa Swim. Have you you've been out to the Circa Hotel in Las Vegas, correct, Scott?
I have been out there. I have not been to the outdoor pool area.
Stadium Swim.
With Stadium Swim, which everybody raves about, but I've been there a couple times. Yes, it's pretty cool.
So what they're doing again this year, Circa, is they have the ultimate draft experience, and there'll be a link in the video description below. This is the coolest thing. We've done it twice where, say you get your league. There's not a lot of in-person drafts anymore, but if you're in a home league, not just a bunch of strangers, you get your league together, you purchase this ultimate draft experience, Scott. They pick you up in a limo. It's included in the package. They bring you to the hotel, and then you have the outdoor by the pool stadium swim draft. They bring you the board, the bikini girls get delivery of the bottle. It really is a cool experience. I mean, you feel a little stupid doing a draft. I'm only kidding. We've done it twice. It's really funny. And then you have their private pool cabana. So ultimate draft experience at Circa Hotel. There'll be a link video description below. You need to do it. So do you have any home leagues where that would even be a possibility at this point in your life, Scott, or no, not at this juncture?
I have a couple home leagues, but neither of them are that adventurous. They would all be lucky to be in one spot for the draft, let alone a destination for the draft.
Yeah. We, like I said, we have one league. We've done it twice, and they do treat you really well. So check it out, Stadium Swim. All right, we're talking about the downside with Scott Connor of every rookie, red flags, what could go wrong? Because Scott and myself are sick of all the positive talk. Travis Hunter goes in the top 5 of every rookie draft. I like him as high as pick 2, Scott. So, I think we all know what Travis Hunter could be. There's a little bit of obvious downside. He could play a lot of defense, but what could go wrong? When I say wrong, I don't mean he's going to be a bad player, but what makes Travis Hunter a bad pick, potentially a red flag player in the top 3 or 4 of your rookie drafts?
This is a fun one. I'm going to take a little bit of a different stab at this, and I don't know if I've heard anybody else kind of take this angle on it. I actually think he's a great pick at the 102 or 103, just simply because I have never seen, and there's been other receivers that have gotten this, but I've never really seen it. I think that's just because where this class is, where we currently are in Dynasty, where everyone kind of now realizes something that I've been talking about for a couple years, that it's really the haves and then it's the replaceable receivers. And the replaceable receivers can be young. They can be guys that people think have upside. They can have high likability, but people know pretty quick that like Jordan Addison's never going to be elite. No matter what he does, he is what he is. He's good. He's not a bust. He's probably somewhere between wide receiver 10 and 35.
10 is being generous. He's like perennial.
But 10 is like he has a couple games where, maybe Jets doesn't play and the offense is just great. Like you could see, and this is where we get with Travis Hunter. Everyone's chasing the next Malik Neighbors, the next Brian Thomas. Like everyone wants that. What they really don't want is, okay, yeah, that guy's steady. Zay Flowers, you know what I mean? They don't want that. So it's really, there's no in between. And Hunter has been painted as he's the guy that can be the elite one. If I can look up in 3 years, he's the top 5 receiver. Now, that's why you would draft him in the top 2 or 3, because even if there's signs of that happening, Alan, but it doesn't quite happen, we did a poll. What would he need to do in his rookie year to hold his top 10 dynasty value, receiver-wise, top 12? And we have some good comparisons. Drake London, Garrett Wilson, like those types. If he just does what they did, where maybe it's disappointing from an overall numbers or, the offense isn't exactly what you want it to be, he'll still be seen as, okay, he's good. You know what I mean?
I don't even think he needs to do that, Scott. All he needs to do is have like 5 flash plays that look insane. Like he used to have Jameson Williams, couple plays like that.
So the bar, again, you're making my point. The bar is even lower for him to just come in and be seen as what people are perceiving him to be today. But then it goes out a little further. Like if you're really going to bet on this, we went through and looked at every receiver duo in the last decade that finished with multiple receivers inside the top 15. And there's not a lot of them. And some of them are ones where you're like, whoa, I didn't really realize those guys were both top 15, right? But then you look at the common thread with almost all of those, Alan, is the quarterback has to hit just a certain benchmark. You know what I mean? It's like the quarterback has to hit 4,500 yards or 35 touchdowns. Like one of those things has to be true pretty much. And so then you get into like, okay, are we undervaluing Trevor Lawrence a little bit? Because if A is true, then B is true, then is C going to be true as well?
Well, these are oscillating truths, right? They're true, then they're not true. They're true, they're not true.
The other thing that I've not seen, and maybe you've seen this, but why isn't Brian Thomas's demand and value going down a little bit? If Travis Hunter is true, how is Brian Thomas still wide receiver 6? Because if you're going to put Hunter in the top 12 and BTJ in the top 8, where's T-Law? Not quarterback 16. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's see again, something has to give here. So I think that's the Hunter downside, is that I don't want to say he's Jordan Addison or Devontae Smith or T. Higgins, but those are the easy ones where you go, he's just not quite worth the 102. But I will say what you can maybe do with him in that first year of his career, because it's still ambiguous, unless BTJ goes out and just goes 100 for 1,500. And it's like, okay, this dude's unstoppable. I think you're going to have the ability to even move Hunter into the tiers if you're not sure of what he is. But the downside is it's just not sustainable. There's a big bet on this offense to support 2 top 12 receivers and where T-Law would need to be.
Right. So Trevor Lawrence is QB 14 in just like in a redraft context, Scott. Like I'm not leaving my 2 quarterbacks if I don't get Jaden Daniels this year. You and I have talked about Jaden Daniels or wait. It's Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence. Those guys would be like QB 6 and 7 for me. And not that you have to draft them there, but that's like probably the median value, like the likely outcome as I'm seeing it if they all play. And the obvious comparison for Lawrence is both receivers are good. There's a story you could tell yourself where this looks like Tampa from last year, right? 4th round running back was Bucky. Now it's Tootin. You have the coach, all that stuff. It just seems like it lines up too perfectly, but sometimes, Occam's razor, right? It's the most obvious answer. So yeah, I like that. So where would you rank, even though you don't have to take them there in your personal rankings, just, we're supposed to be talking downside, but just where should Lawrence be? I'm curious of where I would have him at like QB 8 if I was in my own rankings, even though you don't have to draft him there.
Yeah, it's tough because every quarterback market is different. And so like quarterback 14, maybe T-Law, but then when you go to your league, you can't get T-Law off the guy that has him. Right. And the deal you're trying to do is like, I have CJ Stroud. Can I get T-Law in a second? And you should on paper, right? Based on what KTC values, trade calculators, etc. But if I came to Alan, I go, Alan, I'll give you Stroud for T-Law in a second. Like, you wouldn't be crazy to go, I just kind of like T-Law better than Stroud. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I don't think you're going against the market, but I don't think you're going against like logical ranges of outcomes. Really what you're punting there is just the sexiness hasn't fully worn off of Stroud, and it's fully worn off of T-Law. So there's just this weird gap where if somebody had to pick with everything else neutral, he's probably going to be outside the top 10. But you just look at him and you go, this is the put up or shut up season for him. But who is the best bet of all those non-elite running quarterbacks that have never had that season before? Like, how doesn't he slot in at the top? Him and Dak Prescott probably have to be right there. So,
yeah. The trade that I was trying to get Lawrence for was you got to have something sexier to go. Like, you have to have Caleb, Justin Herbert, the guys that, there's something wrong with them in the market's eyes, but they're still in the top, solidly there. So I want
Stroud isn't sexy, is he?
No.
I still can't believe that even though he's QB 8, QB 9,
I'm looking at it now
on KTC. Do you really want to be the one that clicks him there, knowing there's all these other guys on the board? Yeah, but someone does, someone that does pretty much all the time.
Yeah. He's 7, Caleb 8, Justin Herbert 9, Drake May 10, who scares me, by the way. I like Drake May like everybody else does, but Bo Nix 11, and then Jordan Love at 12 is weird.
Those are I think if you have Nix or May,
yes,
and you want to go to T-Law, I think those are sexy enough where you could maybe get that done, and maybe you don't get a second, but you can do a pick swap in this year's draft. Like I've loved to take the second round picks this year and try to figure out, like, based on my format, where is going to be that dead zone where, if you're just in like a 1.5 premium, you've probably had it happen a couple times. You get to like that 208, 209. You're like, do I really want to take Elijah Arroyo here? You know what I mean? Do I want to take Jaden Blue as the next running back off the board? Like that spot where you just know you don't want to pick, even that value I think is worth it.
Yeah, with the Jaden Blue, that's an interesting topic for another day for sure. Because the Dallas Land, all right, we'll get into it. I want to continue to find our red flags and crap and stay on topic here. That's the problem with these guys. I have you on here, limited amount of time. I want to cover it all. I want to skip around like the order a little bit because
Okay.
We'll come back to Tet McMillan. We'll come back to Cam Ward. Travion Henderson has skyrocketed it up to RB7. Guy hasn't played a snap. He's in a timeshare. I understand the upside here, but what do people have to be careful of? What do you want to tell them negative? Let's take a crap on Travion Henderson if he hits his 50th percentile or a lower outcome.
Yeah, this is tough because I think he has a similar argument as Travis Hunter. Like, he's been anointed as the next elite running back in this class for a long time. So even though he's not the best running back in this class, the NFL still drafted him in a range where you have to validate that, right? And I think just there's this thought of, and you've heard the comparison, he's the next Gibbs. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's not as explosive as Gibbs. You know what I mean? He's not the same type of player as Gibbs. And would Gibbs be what he is if he was in an average situation? Just throwing it out there. You put Gibbs on a different team where there is another running back next to him. Is he the RB1, RB2? Just a rhetorical question. You know what I mean? Like, you're banking on that plus the situation turning around. I just think I'm not even getting into the injury forecast or anything like that people have talked about. I just think at RB7, there's more things you can do with that market value, but I also am sitting here going like, there's teams where it makes sense just to take 3 of these rookies if you have all these picks and you've set your team up for it. So I think it's I don't think there's a lot of downside with Henderson unless you are paying that market price in a startup, or because you're going to have a window with him. I truly feel that.
Window for what though? Because to get your money back at pick 5 and pick 6.
A window to do something else to address the running back position if that's your goal with it. You don't draft a guy like him as the asset that I'm going to move for something else, but just look at the reactions to running backs that people have liked that have also correlated with guys that do well early.
Right. Like there's a situation, Scott, where Henderson comes out strong, Tet comes out slow, and you get Alvin Kamara and Tet for Travion Henderson. I mean, something like that.
Hey, the running back concerns, I think, for most people are just the longevity and the injury. And like, I can bypass all of that. So I don't really value like a receiver more than a running back when I'm drafting. But I think a lot of people do. Like, if you give them a top 12 receiver, they value that higher than almost any running back, unless it's Jeanty, Bijan, you know what I mean? And it's because of that safety. But really, like, Henderson's going to have some sort of window. It's just, when you get up, let me ask you this, Alan, because you have a lot of leagues. Let's say you take a couple Hendersons. He's usable right away, right? He's giving you top 15, top 20 numbers right away, which is great. You're hoping he grows into a bigger role, but you're not 100% certain of that. But you see the flashes where you're like, okay, because Gibbs can be great if there's just nobody else. Well, then there's always been somebody else, you know? Do you have the discipline to make a real gross pivot off of a guy like that and go, man, he's producing, but so is Chuba Hubbard.
Okay.
And I'll go Chuba Hubbard and another wide receiver 2 for Henderson. Because that would be like the cash out process type trade. But a lot of people go, oh no, I'm going to have the next just league breaker. Right. And that's really hard to get.
So yeah, you're going to get like Chuba Hubbard and T Higgins for
perfect.
Something like that. Xavier Worthy has a couple good games, and actually,
and most people would not do that because they would go, I could have gotten something close to that before he even did anything. And now he's shown that he's good. Right. I need more. And then guess what they end up doing? They hold on to him, and then we get into an off season. And then we get into, okay, this happened, and all of a sudden he settles into this. Well, wait a second, Alan. Maybe the plan was never just to load him up in year 2, you know what I mean? Or year 3. And then you go, man, I wish I would have traded him when he was like Breece Hall, right? Breece Hall was RB1 or RB2, and you thought the team was going to clear out the backfield and he was going to get 300 carries and 60 catches a year. And I don't know if he ever gets close to back to where he was. He can be productive, but I don't know if his demand ever gets back to that window. Do you have the discipline to sell in that high demand window? Most people don't.
I don't. No. But I also am a realist about today's prices versus yesterday's prices. The only discipline that I have, and when I say I have, is I've displayed it, is I'm okay buying distressed assets. So I don't have the discipline the other way to sell the high-end asset. because everyone wants yesterday's prices. I want today's prices, you know? But I do have the discipline to buy like Chris Olave or, you know, I always use Martavis Bryant because that didn't go well. I always bought guys like that, you know, either, you know, back in the day, weed's not a big deal anymore, but I always say, always draft the weed guy that falls, you know? The Tyreek Hill was like a 3rd round startup pick.
You buy like the Jonathan Brooks, Tank Dell, Christian Watson types. So if you're getting them, like I've just been getting rid of those guys for 3rds, 4ths.
So
like, you buy those, or is that just too low to care about?
Too low to care about in the sense where they have to have displayed elite upside. Like I bought Tyreek Hill during the child abuse stuff. I bought Adrian Peterson, like those type of guys. I'm not. Injuries find you so often, Scott, that I'm not going to lean into them. I don't like draft injured guys in my redraft league. So Brooks and those guys, they'll be worth even less in season. Like I saw them exchange for like 3rd round picks, and I'm cashing out for all that kind of stuff, but they'll be worth even less when they're just not playing and somebody wants to make a pickup. So I meant more of like Chris Olave has already showed top 12 upside. Jalen Waddle has already showed that he could be an elite receiver. And those guys, like you can get them for a single first right now. Like you're on the clock at 109 and somebody needs a quarterback and Jackson Dart's there or Caleb Johnson there. Like you can buy Waddle for that right now. You know, I bought Waddle for 2 firsts, stupidly after his, well, maybe it was not stupidly after his breakout year. My worst trade ever, Scott. This is like the worst thing I ever did was, and it makes sense process-wise, just the outcome was terrible. After Juju's rookie season, was his breakout his rookie year or his second year?
It was, I think, 2018.
So it was the second year. It wasn't his rookie year. Yeah, I bought him for 2 firsts and 2 seconds, and then it would never. It was so bad. It broke my dynasty team.
Yeah, I mean,
he was a 21-year-old wide receiver 1 in dynasty.
Yeah, I mean that's what people forget is Juju produced at 20. So like you thought that this guy at minimum he's going to do this for another 10 years. You know, now we look at that so differently.
Yeah, look, a Josh Gordon mentioned when we talk about buying the weed guy, right? Like, yeah, I would always buy the Josh Gordon for, you know, less in those days. And you know, there's always people in your league. Like I always make the joke, Scott, like if Saddam Hussein can get me fantasy points, I'm buying them. You know, like I don't like, there's the people in your league that, oh, this guy did this horrendous thing, I'm not buying him. Like, I don't care in fantasy. Like the points that matters. I know everyone plays it differently, but you know, Deshaun Watson was a bad buy, but yeah, like I didn't have any problems buying Deshaun Watson, and I could separate the art from the artist in fantasy football.
Alan, the stuff we don't know that we continue to buy about players, like every roster has 4 players on there where if you knew, I mean, that's just the world, right? We interact with people all day where you're like, if you knew everything they've ever done or thought of or thought about doing, you would be like, why would I ever have any friends or talk to any other human?
I'm not sure you would be on this podcast with me if you knew some of the things I think about.
I agree. And that's it's not shade on you. That's just everybody's mind has done things or gone in places before where you're like, you know, you
Scott,
point being,
I love you unconditionally, just so you know. I would never abandon you if you had a scandal, just so you know. I'm always your pal, okay?
A scandal in the fantasy football industry.
Oh, there's been some. Remember Bobby Silvestri at Fantasy Pros? I mean,
we could do a whole podcast on this, not for today. We're talking downside. We're trying to get back to reality.
Downside of fantasy analysts. Yeah, no, I think that's a, you know what Scott and I will think about the appropriateness of that podcast and do it. We'll talk about
we're the TFC of the fantasy industry. A daily show.
So good. Tet McMillan, this one has some easy downside attached to it. Is there any story you could tell yourself? Because Tet optimism is now up. I'll just give you an example. I was talking to Mike Dempsey, who does a lot of local Jaguars radio. He's on Sirius XM as well. He was like, I don't even understand he was convinced of this, that Tet McMillan was not the wide receiver 1 on this team. It was like Xavier Legette. I don't even know how the hell you say his name anymore. Is it Legette, whatever. And it didn't even occur to him that Tet was going to be the WR1. And is he wrong? I don't know. It's not what I think, but what's the Tet downside?
Honestly, I don't think there's a lot of downside. I don't know if there's a lot of upside, but I don't think that you really look at him. I don't look at him at least as I'm going to get absolutely smoked by the pick. I mean, he's still got a really good profile. and he got top 10 capital. If you just run those two things together, it's hard to say you got a complete flame out. You know what I mean? Now, it's interesting, Alan, because I haven't heard a lot of people saying this guy is the next Jefferson. This guy is the next Malik Neighbors. You know, like, have you heard his name thrown around with give it a year and he'll be an absolute superstar? Have you really ever heard?
I've heard that,
say that about Tet?
No, I've heard he could be poor man's AJ Green. He could be DK Metcalf's fantasy career, have a good year, and then he's like perennial wide receiver 18.
Yeah, and even if you wanted to take the, I'd say less sexy versions of the guys that became elite receivers, like I haven't even heard anybody say, "Oh, Tet's the next Amon-Ra. Tet's the next CeeDee Lamb." You know what I mean? I haven't heard anybody talk like that. Yet he was a top 10.
See this comment? The guy just said, "I see more hype for Jaden Higgins out there." Honestly,
yeah, that's fair. There is a pocket of people that are excited about a lot of other receivers other than Matthew Golden versus Tet, and so he's still got top 10 capital. That's the thing, and maybe it's like, I guess the downside is he just becomes a slightly lesser version of the next Garrett Wilson or Drake London. Those guys are similar, I think, to him, but again, like, you wanted those guys after year one. You know what I mean? People thought it was going to be through the roof for those guys. And then you had the reality hit that you know what? One thing that came across in that research that I did, Alan, is we're not very good at projecting what offenses are going to be elite versus which ones are going to be bad. But it's very hard for a receiver to have a even semi-elite season if the offense doesn't have just a couple things going for him.
And what are those things?
Like, well, you need passing efficiency. So you don't look at, I use the EPA and CPOE for passing efficiency just from an NFL perspective.
To explain what those things are quickly.
So it's EPA and CPOE. You can go to, it's rbsdm.com. They run through an explanation of how it's graded, but it's essentially measuring what the quarterback is bringing to the offense per play and then how efficient they are. They use completion percentage over expected is what CPOE is.
Say that one more time, the CP one.
Completion percentage over expected.
Okay.
So it's a good NFL measurement of passing efficiency, right? You don't see a lot of top 10 receiver seasons, top 12 receiver seasons, and then you look at the quarterback efficiency and it's like, yeah, that dude was down where Will Levis was. You know what I mean? Like you just don't see quarterbacks, no matter who the receivers are, get to that level. And that explains why, like, Garrett Wilson has never come across as elite. It ain't his fault. Like, it's just not. You know what I mean? You put Garrett Wilson on another roster, you'd be going, okay, we might think of it a little bit differently. So I think that's the downside with Tet. It's Bryce Young. Like, Bryce Young's one of the worst. He was better the second half of last year. How good do you think Bryce Young is, though, Alan?
Right.
Because he, like, historically, through the first couple years of his career, he's at the bottom 10% of guys that were drafted in the first round. Like, he's still, the cohorts that come up with Bryce is still like Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, you know what I mean? Guys where you're like, this guy's not even going to get a second contract. So I'm not saying he's terrible. Is he a top half of the league efficiency quarterback? I don't know. But that's my thought of what the downside could be with Tet, is he just kind of settles in what he is.
All right, couple housekeeping notes here before we continue crapping on all these rookies that nobody's going to want to draft after we're done talking about them, Scott Connor, is that RotoWire right now is doing a promo code ROTO15. You can get 15% off any product at RotoWire. Some new tools that are being built right now is the mock draft simulator, prop picker. Just go over to rotowire.com. Plenty of free stuff there. But if you want to buy any of the products, code ROTO15 at checkout, get 15% off. And Scott, I'm going to give you about a minute or so to plug here. But if you don't mind, the viewers of this podcast have gotten used to this. I drink coffee during it, and I have like the bladder of a 90-year-old man. I'm going to pee. But during that pee time, you're going to give a chance because the audience loves you. I see it all in the comments here. And anyone who's, for some reason, seeing you for the first time, I want you to tell them where they could find you and what you're working on right now. Is that okay while I pee and do that?
Go take care of your business, Alan.
I'll be back.
I will carry the show.
I usually keep a Gatorade bottle under. No, I'm just kidding. I don't do that. I'll be right back.
Well, as Alan steps away, for those that are tuning in for the first time or just need a reminder, all of my content is over on ddfantasyfootball.com. We have a YouTube channel that we just launched, a second one. Ray's channel split off onto Ray Garvin covering NFL draft, and we split our new YouTube channel off, DDFFB, where we're doing Dynasty and fantasy content over there. So on YouTube, ddfantasyfootball.com. That is our community where we have a bunch of cool tools, a great Discord community that Alan is in.
Yes,
and
I am.
That's where you can pretty much find us all the time. We're always talking through a lot of the same stuff that you hear on the shows that Alan does on this channel. Yep. So that's where you can find me.
Yep. So you know what? I think my do you guys still have the Heisman tier as your highest level?
Yep.
It's okay. I think my Heisman tier might expire. I might infringe on our friendship to get into to have you re-up me.
No,
there
I got you.
Okay.
We can do a little quid pro quo here, Alan. You can hook me up with maybe something that can help us going forward with maybe some content or some production.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Oh yeah.
We'll
totally.
get you in.
Totally. I mean, I love so that's what I'm saying. It's not only do I enjoy Scott as a friend and, we become friendly as much as you can over Zoom, right, Scott? But, I don't miss anything Scott does. He's a big influence on a lot of other content creators. So Scott, appreciate that. And you like how I ask you in front of the audience because you can't say no in front of the audience, right?
Correct.
So This is good stuff. All right, man. Moving on, Scott is going to take the sober approach on a lot of these guys and tell you about the downside. Cam Ward feels like he was the best quarterback in this class, not necessarily the best quarterback. I don't want to say, you remember Sam Bradford from a bunch of years ago? He got shoved up to the 101 because he was best in class. Is that the Cam Ward outcome that is not good?
No, I mean, this is another guy where I'm kind of like, the downside is obvious. Like the NFL's not great at picking quarterbacks high. There's been many of them where you're like, oh, that guy's at least he's going to be a solid starter, and then he just is not for one reason or the other. I don't know. What's your pulse on like just flat out Zach Wilson level bust risk for Cam Ward? Like, does it? No, if you had to say 1 to 10, it doesn't feel very high. Is that the same for you?
Yeah. No, Zach Wilson to me was an obvious bust. Like the small school, he just didn't look like the part. Like Cam Ward, just there's things you could tell by just watching a person interact in media and stuff where he's not gonna be like epic bust, right? He has a chance to be like, the 19th best quarterback, like a low end starter, and he's got that special 101 insulation. Even the 102 doesn't have that insulation. That was Zach Wilson. So Bryce Young was the outlier, right, Scott, where he got benched. 101s usually don't get benched in year two. So, but he rebounded. He did need that. And also, I think that most people didn't think Bryce Young should have been the 101, even though it was split. So, yeah, man, I think that there's non-high end outcomes for someone like Cam Ward, especially in the setup he's in. He just has Calvin Ridley. Maybe they'll add more help next year. I still like Tyler Lockett as a real NFL player, decent, but I don't think the epic bust. I don't think he'll ever be on Mount Rushmore bust for us. But taking
and low key, the stuff I see with Cam Ward in terms of just listening to a couple of his interviews and just the stuff that people say about him, he does kind of feel like he's got some of those other things going for him that you could see why a team would want to do everything they can to make it work. You know what I mean? He doesn't feel like the guy that's going to get in the building and immediately there's going to be work ethic concerns or things that are a distraction. You know what I mean? Like it does feel like.
Did you see the thing with him and Shador when they were talking about like making a rap song? So just context, there was video. And again, you never know how these things are clipped, but
just even some of the reports from Miami about how like when he came in there, he changed the entire culture. And
where
like
did he come from? Where did he come from?
He came from Washington State and was at Incarnate Word before, but the numerous, when I hear numerous people say like when that person enters the room or when that person joins the organization, like everything shifts, you know what I mean? Everybody else around them falls in line or steps their game up. Like those are the kind of things that we don't take into account in terms of, dynasty at all. Cause it really doesn't matter. All we're concerned with, does he not bust? And then you get into the more obvious downside of the obvious downside is he's just somewhere between at his peak, he's the 10th best quarterback and he's somewhere between 10 and 22 for the next 5 years. And you know what the deadest of dead ranges for trading in Dynasty is? That range. And so, which is the reason why I don't think people are as excited. It's why he falls to, I was in a draft the other day, he fell to the 108.
Oh, that's
it was a 2 tight end league. So it's Warren and Loveland clearly just go ahead of him because of the scarcity. And so people are just, they again, it's like Tet. Have you heard anybody say Cam Ward is the next Josh Allen?
No,
Do you know what I mean? Like,
no,
rarely is anybody projecting the elite outcome. We projected the elite outcome on Caleb Williams off the rip, right? This guy's going to be a game changer. And maybe Caleb is hurting. Isn't the fact that Caleb was so pumped up and Bryce Young is so pumped up that we've kind of neutered our expectations for Cam Ward, and watch, he'll come out and he'll be the one that blows everybody away.
Right. He'll be Brock Purdy, like exceed expectations. I mean, Brock Purdy was the last pick in the draft, but right. I think the downside is Trevor Lawrence's first couple of years in the league, right? Like the 101. Actually, Trevor Lawrence was supposed to be the Mashiach, right? He was supposed to be the guy to save the world.
Trevor Lawrence, I think, he's a hard one to compare to because, I mean, he had the Urban Meyer in the first year, Well,
I just meant the outcome, the actual.
The outcome.
Yeah.
And then the second year is like flipped a switch. And then he was QB2 again. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, this guy's going to turn it around. He's going to be a stud. And then he settles right into, but we're talking about Trevor Lawrence today. Like, you'd pick him in the top 8. So, I mean, that's a good value if you're getting Cam Ward in the mid first, if that's what he becomes.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about some other 101s that were disappointing. Baker Mayfield, was a 101 that didn't produce how people, I mean, he got traded off his damn team before his rookie contract was over.
Yeah. I mean, if it's not the sitting for 3 years, but if in 4 years Cam Ward is where Jordan Love is right now, is that a good or a bad pick with a mid first in this class?
It's a good
debatable.
Yeah, it's debatable. It's a good pick because the expectations were low. Like Trevor Lawrence is a bad pick because he was going to be the next Andrew Luck. Trevor
Lawrence went ahead of Jamar Chase.
Right.
That's where you're looking back going, that was a mistake. But if you would have taken him after, you feel fine. So yeah, I don't think there's a lot of downside because I just don't think his just flame out of the league bust potential is high, but the potential that he just settles into this range where they just don't move that much is pretty high.
All right. In an attempt to keep this thing tight, we're going to do some lightning round stuff. So what I'll do is I'll name a player, give me your 1 or 2 best points on that player, because I do want to talk about at least 4 or 5 more of these guys, and I want to try to keep podcasts around an hour. It's very difficult with you because the audience does want to hear a lot what you have to say. But Caleb Johnson, who's on the thumbnail of this now, I've seen him be as high as QB2. Like, our friend Debro over at Fantasy Pros thought that he was 2. Then he gets it goes exactly where everyone wants him to go, Pittsburgh, just a round later, and now he's like QB5 or RB5 or RB2. He's people don't want. He's a true polarizing player. The opposite of someone like RJ Harvey. So downside for Caleb Johnson, then I'll let you sprinkle in a little goodness for Caleb. Where are you on him?
I mean, honestly, I really want him, but I also would put him at RB6. So okay. You're kind of like,
let's go through it. Who's Jeanty 1, Hampton 2 for you?
It's probably Jeanty, Hampton, Henderson, and then you can pick between Harvey and Judkins, just depending on. But I would probably pick Harvey and Judkins because the NFL chose them, and their situations I think are.
The Pittsburgh one's better than
Pittsburgh and Cleveland are probably similar, but if you buy into the Harvey narrative, then that situation's better. But I think you can put them all in any order. I want all 6, but I can clearly guess because I went back and ran the historical war on running backs in this range. Like, we're pretty poor at picking out who the RB, 3 through 10 in a class is. Because a lot of times in hindsight, after a couple of years, which is really all you care about, the guys that we're drafting maybe a little bit behind, I think we're assuming Caleb Johnson is in his own tier.
Yeah.
And then we're just dismissing everybody else as they have to go a round lower than him. Whereas, would you be shocked if you looked up and in 2 years, the best running back after the big 2 or 3 is Tootin? Or, you know what I mean? And you're just like...
Bucky Irving is the exact case for this, right?
And there's so many that it could be that you would take the field over it's just clearly going to be Caleb Johnson. Now, the good thing with him, you can go back to Willie Parker, Rashad Mendenhall. Dude, every Steelers running back that they've just anointed the next guy has always been good.
Najee.
Just not... How many of them have been great besides 2 years of Le'Veon Bell? You know what I mean? Right. Kind of feels like that's what he is. And is that bad or is that good? Is that bad if it's RB 12 in Dynasty already? I don't know. What do you think?
I love the Willie Parker thing because he was like a second round fantasy pick in his day. I mean, we're going back 20 years, 15 years, whatever it is. I like Caleb Johnson from what, I'm not a tape grinder. I'm a YouTube highlight watcher. I admit that. And I rely on the tape grinders to do the work for me, and I'll make my own analysis. I trust my eyes. I know there's downside. If he was an elite prospect, he would have gone in where the RJ Harvey-ish pick was. But I don't see third round draft capital as a bad thing.
Nope.
Yeah, I mean, the price is fair on Caleb, but like you said, he could just be, RB 14 next year. He could be, I mean, if his career is James Conner, that was another guy who didn't, he was okay he was pretty good on the Steelers, right? I mean, that's the high end outcome for him. James Conner.
This feels like the type of situation where, would you be shocked if after this year, Warren's gone, right?
Right. But they'll get somebody else.
They draft and people are going to scoff at this name because of what he is today, but they drafted the equivalent of like a Tajay Spears next year in the third. And you're like, why did they do that? I wanted them just to give Caleb every single touch, but
doesn't happen.
I don't know. Like, I just think he's probably there's not a lot of downside. You're getting him at the end of the first, like you just take the swing and you eat the innings.
All right, here's the list of Steelers running backs. This is a slow tangent. So going from like best to, the top, whatever. You said Rashad Mendenhall in there, right? By the way,
Rashad Mendenhall. Yep.
Love so the best is like Franco Harris, Jerome Bettis. So you said Willie Parker and Lev Bell, but the sort of middle.
Barry Foster.
Yes. Yes. That's a good callback. Oh my God. Let's see. Yeah. Barry Foster, the 9th in rushing yards there. Man, you named all the good ones here. I'm just trying to think. Cordell Stewart is rushing yards, but that was a quarterback. Yeah, James Conner is 18th in rushing yards for the team. So it's very interesting. Yeah, but you remember Amos Zaraway? He was kind of a bust.
I remember Amos Zaraway, but it's funny because James Conner is the comp I hear a lot already.
Oh, that is a thing that people. Okay, good. So
the value in James Conner is that he's still kicking. Nobody wanted James Conner 3 years ago. He was what he was then that he is now. And are you ever going to bet on a running back having a 10-year career, Alan?
No. And by the way, he's always considered the best value in fantasy football by the end of the season.
Right. But he's going into his 9th year? Like the value that we're going to look back on James Conner and go, dude, he was reliable for like every season of his career after Bell left. It's hard to project that on a guy. So really he needs to produce sooner rather than later, because you're not guaranteed to even get into year 6, year 7, etc.
So downside of Caleb Johnson is that he's just the next Steelers grinder. They draft a backfield partner for him. He's never going to be the 30 touch guy. He's going to be the 18, even if he's the 18 touch lead guy, he's just, perennial RB 16, RB 9, just a good player, but never one that you could really get more than you paid for, so to speak.
David Montgomery is probably like what you would hope his career becomes. And for 75% of his dynasty career, he was, this guy's not as good as I thought he should be,
All right. There's so many good players to get to. But I want to, Cam Scatteraboo is somebody that everybody likes. I like him, right? I mean, he's almost being treated as if he was drafted in the second round. New York Giants, he's got Tyrone Tracy there who performed really well. We all know what, Cam Scatteraboo is going to be a popular
subconsciously
pick.
Look at Scam.
I mean, 202, I've never seen him fall past 203, 204. I mean, it's rare, right? I mean, I even saw him taking it 112. And again, I don't have a problem with it. So you always talk about players that people like. Cam is one of those guys. What's the downside of this guy?
Yeah, the reason he's there is because he's more likable than most of the others, and nobody really liked the other running backs in the backfield much. So it's like he landed in one of the spots where, unlike the other 4th round running backs, it wasn't really that crowded in the eyes of people. The downside is, Alan, you're taking him around higher than you can just rip off running back after running back after running back after running back. And the difference between what Scatteraboo becomes and what a lot of the other, wouldn't you rather have 3 shots at guys in the third than one Cam Scatteraboo?
Yeah.
And maybe that's not everybody.
No, but that's
I think he's seen as a player I got to have, and the guys that go in the third are not players anybody needs to have. So maybe I'm wrong on that, but it just feels like if you have the capacity to roster enough of the bodies in this draft, it just feels like this is a spot to trade back. That's the downside. Is I think we're pushing him up for reasons outside of production expectations.
Yeah, I was again, I don't know if it's a perfect comparison, but like I was trading, I did this right and I did it wrong. I was trading up for Tank Bigsby his rookie year until like the middle of the second. The guy who traded back got like Brian Robinson in round 3 and like 2 other useful players. I gave him, I had 3/3. I gave him like, I gave him, I bought his second to get Tank, gave him my 3/3, and then got back like a 4th and a 5th. And it didn't work
that
out.
comment nailed it in the chat. People draft Scadaboo there because they want him to do good. He's in New York. He's a fun story. That's a great explanation as to why he's clearly a tier. I mean, he's not just a tier above everybody else. He's like a half a round above Tootin. And then he's like a whole round and a half above all of the, other 4th, 5th, 6th round running backs. Like, why is he a round and a half difference than Jarquez Hunter? Simply right away opportunity that we think we know in May. What if we're wrong?
If he let's test your keep trade cut knowledge, which by the way is like more or less a consensus. We have Dynasty rankings. I know you guys have them too over at DD Fantasy Football, but let's test your what do you think his overall, not just rookie, his overall running back ranking is right now in consensus according to keep trade cut?
Got to be in the 20s somewhere.
Well, you got 10 choices there, so pick one.
26.
You're good at this, Scott Connor. He is RB 25 today as of recording. That is damn good. I would have never guessed that. I would have said 33.
So that means we have 7 rookies in the top 25.
Which makes sense for Dynasty. I mean,
it does. But again, then you'd ask people, what do you care about it? It was Ray said it perfectly. He goes, I want all the rookie running.
What's that? Just for those who know, Ray GQ over at
founder of DD. He said it perfectly. He goes, I want all these rookie running backs until August. Then I'll switch them all out for the guys that are going to produce.
I want James Conner in September.
People are drafting. Oh man, I'm trading up for Tootin. I'm trading up for Jaden Blue. And then you get to the season. I don't know if that guy's going to have much of a projection. Can I get Zach Charbonnet instead? Can I get this guy instead?
Right.
We're going to flip the script, but you're right. That's the nature of running back rankings.
Yep. Running back rankings reflect what people want, right? Not necessarily the best product. I mean, how many crappy products are there on Amazon that just get bought every day because, you saw like a video of like, what I bought the other day, Scott? I bought an electric box cutter. Do you think I'm ever going to use that thing? No.
Well, but you know what? It can be to your house in 2 hours.
That's Jaden Blue, the electric box cutter. It looks so cool and I want it. And then I get it. The guy in the commercial on Amazon was like cutting his Amazon boxes. But I get there. I'm like, oh, I got to get batteries. I got jammed once already. I'm like, I'm just going to use my car key on the way out.
The box cutter is the ultimate gateway product because you're like, wait a second. Now I have this. I need to buy more Amazon stuff so I can open the boxes with my new box cutter.
I mean, it looks so cool and seamless in the commercial. I got it. It jammed batteries. I live in a condo and there's like a dumpster where you have to put the boxes. So I carry the boxes out. I have my car key and I like slice them and dice them there. Sometimes I'm just an animal. I use my fingers. I'm ripping, the tape gets stuck in my arm hair. It's a disaster out there for me,
At least you're classy. You don't throw them all in the street and just stomp on them until they're flat, right? And then throw them in. Yeah, you cut them up and fold them nicely.
Good job. I have to because we're in our 40s. I'm 49 years old, my wife and I, and the average age here in this condo complex is about 140. So they know everything that's going on. I one time just threw a small Amazon box in there uncut. It was literally taken out of the dumpster and put on my doorstep. And the one of the HOA people said, "You need to."
There's 8 ring cameras on you at all times. And if you do anything wrong, you're getting a notice from the HOA the next day.
I did another faux pas. Do you use ChatGPT pretty often? Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. I mean, you'll write something, you'll throw it through, just say, polish this up. Oh, Scott, I did something. I did something yesterday. And I need you to talk me off a ledge. I'm still feeling awful about this. I'll just super quick here. I had to. We were doing like an interview process for some content guys, and I had to send somebody a decline notice. We're not going to use the guy, and he was awesome. He was a professional. He was polish. It's not a right fit for what we're doing. And I wrote a decline letter and I put it through ChatGPT and it just fixed it up. It made it tight. I send him the decline letter and I copy my manager on it. And he sends it back. He goes, dude, you included the ChatGPT instructions in your fucking note.
Yep.
Like
yep. At the bottom, sometimes if you copy and paste, depending on which one you use, it'll be like, there'll be a little tagline that says like brought to you by, Microsoft Copilot or whatever. You know what I mean? You do want to make sure you don't copy that in there.
Oh my God. No, it said like in the top, it said, please write a friendly decline letter.
Yep.
Like my instructor.
Or what is your next question? Like
right. But
yeah,
I'm telling so not only am I embarrassed that I sent the decline letter that was clearly ChatGPT, polished. My boss says, what are you doing? Just sending a copy and paste. Like he doesn't care about ChatGPT, So the other thing, by the way, with ChatGPT, I learned is that, those M dashes, those double dashes that it always uses in the text, you have to get rid of those or it's clear and obvious ChatGPT. There's people using ChatGPT now, Scott, to text their like girlfriends and stuff and their wives.
Yeah. Oh, you've seen the videos where people just have it up and they're dictating the questions that are coming in from like a job interview and it's responding in real time. Just read off the screen.
So crazy.
I do use it a lot, like in my job, I do use it, but
what do you use it for?
Well, I mean, I use a lot of it to summarize just really mundane documents that would take, weeks of man hours to go through. So going through like contracts and I work in litigation. So I do go through a lot of, you ever get a 40-page lawsuit, you know what I mean? And you're like, you need to go through some of the specifics when you respond, but you do want to kind of get like, what is this all about? Give me the cliff notes so I can at least start with my strategy of how I'm going to respond to it. But it's usable, but you got to be careful when you're running your entire life on it.
Who runs the YouTube over at DD Fantasy Football?
It is myself, Shane, John Bauer, Mitch Sorensen.
There's a bunch of guys.
I would say myself, Ray, John, Mitch, and Shane.
Reason I asked is that I found a good YouTube hack. You guys you put timestamps in your YouTube videos, right?
We try to, yes. That should be one of the requirements for everybody to do that, just because it makes it so much easier if somebody wants to. Hell, it's easier for us to go back and find certain things. You know what I mean? Nothing worse than a YouTube video where there's no captions, there's no timestamps, nothing.
And you see it in the comments if you post it like 10 seconds later. Where's the timestamps? Like, you see that all the time. So anyway, the reason I bring it up was I found a prompt online that can auto-generate the timestamps of a YouTube video just by throwing the transcript in there. And it's one click because you don't have to keep putting the I'll send it to you. Or I'll walk you through it because it's the best thing ever. The downside is the transcript takes about a couple hours to populate in any YouTube video. But once it's in there, you just throw the transcript in there, copy and paste it, and it aligns your stamps. You could say, hey, create 8 stamps, 10 stamps, 12 stamps. It works to a T now. It's amazing. So whereas I had to scrape a little bit and say, okay, what are we talking about here? Now it says, hey, we're talking about Saquon Barkley. It says or we'll say, hey, the downside of Tet McMillan. Like it'll have heard you say that, and that creates the timestamp now.
Yeah, timestamps don't have to be perfect. They could, as long as you get to that section, that's what people are looking for.
Yeah.
They're looking for specific things, especially if you're doing like themed shows. They want to know where you're talking about the trades or you're talking about this player, that type of thing.
Yeah. So I'll send you the prompt. It's unbelievable. I saw it on TikTok and it worked. I Googled it and this one YouTube hack guy figured it out and the prompt is amazing. And now you never have to like keep putting the prompt in because as you know, in ChatGPT, it saves your topic. So I just go back to that one, say, now do it with this transcript. And I just throw the transcript in there, which the transcript is easily gotten in the video description a couple hours after. You click just show transcript and copy paste it. All right, let's do like 2 more lightning round, then I'll get you out of here because you can't spend all day with me, by the way. Even though the audience seems to like you, and we knew that. All right, couple polarizing guys. We talked Cam Scat. We'll talk one more big name guy that I think everybody wants to know, or nobody wants to know the downside. Let's just put the tight ends in one bucket. Colston, Loveland, Tyler Warren. What's the downside of those guys? Because, first round, top 10 tight ends, man, top 15 tight ends, those guys should hit. Yeah,
I mean, and the downside is that the what you need to hit for them to be really worth drafting in the first round of a non like super heavy premium league, the threshold's extremely high. So it's an awful bet.
It's the slow
to
developing
where,
photo, right?
Yeah, well, I think when you're trying to debate, like, should I draft these guys? Like, you're looking at two different things. Like, you're looking at the elite outcome versus they're just good players, right? But then you're also looking at your roster construction and you're saying, like, okay, does it really make sense on your specific roster to take a shot on trying to get an elite tight end? Because I'm already operating under the assumption that it's not going to happen. But if it does, what's the payoff to my roster? You know what I mean? If I don't have a tight end, I could justify taking the shot a little bit more.
What if you have like Zach Ertz? Like you have Zach.
When I say I don't have a tight end, like I'm sitting here going like, all right, I'm hoping that I can pick between Jake Ferguson and Hunter Henry every week. Like that, that's the type of one where I'm either deciding to do that or I'm looking to get rid of those guys for anything and just make the bet on Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland. It's got to be one or the other. I think where people go astray is in like, I'm in some FFPC drafts, like someone will have Laporta and they're ripping, Tyler Warren at 106. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, you're basically betting. Because here's the thing: if Tyler Warren becomes tight end 3 or 4, you know who probably falls back? Laporta, the guy you already have. You know what I mean? So you're making a bet that I'm not saying they can't both exist. I see too many people doubling down. Oh, well, even if I'm wrong, I still have a flex-worthy tight end. And it's like, yeah, but wouldn't you rather have Emeka Egbuka if he's good? You know what I mean? Or wouldn't you rather have one of those running backs? It just certain formats. The downside is they're just not elite. And if you're not elite, how fun is David Njoku? Evan Ingram. How fun's Kyle Pitts, Dalton Kincaid? Nobody wants those guys. And guess what they both are? Probably still like top 15 tight ends.
Top 15. Yeah, right. And if, by the way,
value-wise, yes. But I mean, even if you had to rank your top 15 producers this year, you would definitely put Kincaid in there, and you'd probably put Kyle Pitts in there.
Yeah, they're 8 and 9 on Keep Trade Cut in ranking
people
value.
Still believe. That's one of the reasons that you would draft these tight ends is not because you think they're Laporta, McBride. It's because even 3 years later, you can still move Kyle Pitts for not a first, but he's viable. Someone would take him because of what he was.
Yep. All right. You said it all, Scott. Amazing. I really enjoy listening to you on your podcast. Go follow Scott at Charles Chill FFB. Do I have it right?
You got it. People always wonder why I put the FFB. Why not? Everyone does just FF now. And that's because I made the Twitter handle like 12 years ago.
If you could change,
there was even a fantasy industry on Twitter. So,
is there a Scott Connor that you tried to get?
No, because I made the handle before I even got into doing content. I never knew that I should have probably changed it a long time ago, but I never did. It's too late to change it now.
Yep. You know what? I forgot to ask people, if you enjoy videos like this, if you enjoy guests like Scott, hit that like button. I don't know if it does anything, but I like seeing it. It keeps, it's an artifact. It probably does mean something. Probably if you like content, it does get out to more people. The one argument I'm having here internally, Scott, about YouTube is that subscribers to the channel, we all want them. They mean something, but they, I'm starting to be persuaded they mean less because good content on smaller channels is popping. So good content wins. Obviously, titles, thumbnails, good content. But so many times, like I'll see a video I love and I'm not subscribed to the channel. I just click like on the video. So, and that's also on thumb scrolling type of media, Reels and TikTok. Like I don't usually follow the creator. I usually like the video. And then the algorithms are so good now, the content finds me. So subscribe to the channel, like the video, but I'm not going to be offended. I'm not worried about a 5,000, 8,000, 25,000 subscriber channel. I just want good content. And if you like videos like this, hit that subscribe button. All right, Scott, we'll be back next week here with another Dynasty Fantasy Football podcast.